everyone, welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and the star of the show, Chris King, is with us. Christopher, last night in Gotham City, not all of them are playing in Gotham City, but one of them was, you hit a big twofer. Our two for the money was New York, New York.
Yeah, the Rangers rallied. They were down 2-1 after the first period. It was 2-2 after two, but they scored 4 times in the third period to bury Chicago on the road, 6-2. And the Knicks, we talked about the Spurs playing the second game of a back-to-back last night and, not getting the rest advantage like they had when they beat Golden State over the weekend. Knicks came out with a 121-109 win. Hopefully it'll set the Knicks up for some positive momentum because they're on the road tonight in Indiana to play a back-to-back. Tom Thibodeau has to be happy to see his team scoring some points. He'd probably like to see them play a little better defense than they did last night against a tired San Antonio team, though.
Absolutely. Well, we got a busy show, so let's get to it. We're going to go to the college hardwood, and we're going to start off in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I got to bounce all the slides back. That's my fault.
It's okay, folks. You're getting don't pay attention to any of this. Okay.
Yep, it's the Big Ten out in Madison. It's Indiana. They're a 4-point underdog on the road to face a Wisconsin team that has not played in conference play yet. Both teams come in off of wins. Indiana beat Nebraska 68-55 at home Saturday. Wisconsin beat Marquette 89-76 at home in a battle of teams from the Badger State. Indiana is very good on the defensive end of the floor. They're 7th in field goal percentage defense, holding opposing teams to 35.3% from the field. They're 42nd in three-point field goal percentage defense. If you look, Wisconsin is, despite scoring 89 points the other night, they're still a below-average team offensively. They're just 212th in scoring offense at 70.6 points per game. They're 285th at shooting at 41.4%, and they struggle from the perimeter, shooting 31.7% from beyond the arc. That despite having Brad Davison in the mix. If you take a look, Indiana's 4-1 in their last 5 overall. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with winning percentage above 600. And in one of those strange stats that always jumps out and scares people, the underdog is actually 4-0 in the last 4 meetings between these teams. I liked what Mike Woodson has done with the Hoosiers. They actually have a little bit of depth. They have some veteran players after getting Xavier Johnson from Pitt, Miller Kopp from Northwestern as transfers in the offseason. Mm-hmm. It's something they didn't really have when Archie Miller was there. And before that, in the tail end of the Tom Crean era, take the points and Indiana as they steal one in the Badger State.
Yeah, that's
right. Shell will not be happy about it since he's a Badgers alum, but he'll get over it.
He tends to get over things about Wisconsin. He's not overly, there's been 4 or 5 times where he himself has gone against his own Badgers, so I wouldn't feel too bad about it. Coming up next, we're going
to go to the Twin Cities. It's another
Big Ten.
Yep, I got to get the thing to actually cooperate. It's being temperamental as usual.
Yep.
That's technology for you. But
there
we go. It's Michigan State on the road as they take on Minnesota. Michigan State 7-2 on the year. They beat Toledo over the weekend. Minnesota a surprising 7-0 after they beat Mississippi State on the road over the weekend. Though they were up 14-0 in that game, they watched the Bulldogs come all the way back to tie it at 76 in the final minute. Before Peyton Willis hit a go-ahead 3 with 17 seconds left, they went on to win 81-76. The problem for Minnesota, their rotation is very thin. They've got 4 of their 5 starters playing more than 35 minutes a game. One of their top reserves, Sean Sutherland, is questionable tonight. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've done a great job in the early going. But they have issues on the glass. They're giving up 5 rebounds per game more than they're pulling in. They're giving up 39.4 boards a night. They're facing a Michigan State team that is good on the glass with a plus 7.4 rebound per game advantage. Michigan State 5-1 in their last 6 after an ATS losses. They did win. They did fail to cover against Toledo, but I'm not going to fault Toledo for that. They're 4-1-1 in their last 6 as a favorite. Minnesota 2-6 in their last 8 at home with a road winning percentage greater than 600. 1-3-1 in their last 5 at home against teams with a winning record, and they're 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 on Wednesday. Minnesota might be undefeated. but they won't be by the time the game's over. Tom Izzo's group takes advantage of that thin rotation, and the Spartans behind Marcus Bingham come up with a road win to remain unbeaten in conference play.
Good time for Sparty. Good to say hello to all of our friends out there. Joni's with us again. Good to see you, Joan. John is out there. John has a question, Chris. It has to do with your opinion of in-game betting.
I'm not against it. I mean, you can definitely get some good numbers in there sometimes, John. It all depends on where you're looking at and what you're looking at. I mean, if you're trying to play the total, sometimes you can get suckered because they'll tell you that, based on the fact that there was a high scoring first quarter or something like that the total, they'll then pump the total up to some ridiculous number. But there are games where if you're looking at playing the line for the rest of the game, I have no issue with that, especially since, you can catch favorable lines here and there. It just depends on what it is that you're betting on and what it is that you're looking for.
Right.
And see, John, you bet on Oakland, Temple, and Mount St. Mary's, but did you bet on Villanova? Because I warned you guys yesterday that Syracuse would fall apart in the second half of that game. Granted, I was disappointed the fact that Villanova jacked up 53s in that game. That's right, 50. It's like Jay Wright's team forgot that you could shoot from inside the arc. They only made 13, but they pulled away in the second half of that game to win 74-62. But some of the shooting numbers were ugly. Brandon Samuels, I think, was 1 for 11 or something like that from three-point range. Brandon Slater was 2 of 15 from the floor. Well, I'm glad to see, John, that you did go with Villanova. Good for you. And good for you, Joan, with the twofer. If you went that way with the Rangers and the Knicks. Yeah, that's right. They did finally cover. But that's Syracuse for you because they can't play defense all that well, and they struggle on the offensive end. Buddy Boeheim was really stifled in that game. Mm-hmm. Cole Swider also struggled. I mean, he was good on the glass, but he only had 5 points. And the big factor in that game, rebounding. Villanova had 57 rebounds. 27 of them came on the offensive glass. When you give up 27 offensive rebounds to anybody, you're going to lose because you're giving up way too many second chances, and that's what burned Syracuse and Jim Boeheim yesterday. Yeah, the Islanders finally pulled a 5. I was disappointed with that. I blame it on the fact that Ottawa forgot that they were supposed to have a goaltender.
Right. They just chose not to send one out. Because,
Anton Forsberg looked good on Monday night. I believe they went with Gustafsson last night. He was not good. I guess they felt pity for Barry Trotz because we've talked so badly about him.
Right. They decided to score all the goals that they're going to score for a week in one game.
Yeah, so don't look for the Islanders to score 5 anytime before the new year because I just don't see it happening.
We're going back.
But kudos to them for screwing me over after I said that they were 0-8-3 in their last 11 games.
There's a little schadenfreude there. So there we go. All right. We're going to Morgantown.
Yeah, we're going to go down to Press, Virginia. The UConn Huskies on the road. West Virginia favored by 2.5 in this game. And I have to say that I like the Mountaineers. Yes, I get it. UConn is 8-1 on the road. They're 8-1 this season. Their only loss coming to Michigan State in a 4-point game on a neutral floor. But let's not overlook West Virginia. They're 7-1 this season. Connecticut, they're playing their first road game of the year. West Virginia's 5-0 at home. One big thing about West Virginia when they play, they're going to press you for 40 minutes. They're going to make life miserable for you. You've got to have good ball handlers. They're second in the nation by forcing turnovers on 28.9% of opposing teams' possessions. They're 9th in block percentage by swatting away 17.2% of the shots that opposing teams take. They're 12th in steal percentage. And the big thing here for UConn, they don't have Adama Sanogo. They don't have Tyrese Martin. They're both out at least 2 to 4 weeks after getting injured recently. That's a big blow to Dan Hurley's team. Where are they going to get production now? Because Sanogo has been so good on the glass, and Martin's been a good contributor on the offensive end. That's a major blow to them. The Huskies 0-4 in their last 4 after an ATS win. West Virginia 4-1 in their last 5 after an ATS loss. And the home team has won 4 of the last 5 meetings in this series. You have to think that West Virginia, in addition to making life miserable for Connecticut, bringing the ball up the floor, they're going to have an easy time shutting down the Huskies without Sanogo and Martin.
Well, it's a typical Bob Huggins team. I mean, they're going to pressure the moment you come off the bus. So,
I mean, if you look at the numbers for Adama Sanogo, I mean, he's got some pretty nice numbers up there when you look at it. He's been a force in the low block for UConn this season, and without him, they don't really have a ton of size. I mean, he's averaged 15.6 points and 6.3 boards a game, plus 1.8 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Without him, I mean, there's not a ton. You have to rely on Tyler Polley, Isaiah Whaley, Akakakak. And that's not just making sound effects. That's his name. I may be mispronouncing it, but it's AKOK, and say it again because that's what his name is. Okay. Either way, West Virginia, they're deep. They roll a long rotation, and they'll just run you ragged. It's much like the 40 minutes of hell Nolan Richardson used to have at Arkansas in the 90s. Right. And that makes it tough for anybody.
For sure. And the other thing is that it's not fun to play at West Virginia either.
Yeah, playing in Morgantown is
they really enjoy
making life hellish for anybody else.
Right. In football and basketball, they can make those games last a whole lot longer than you may want them to. Okay, I think we're headed to the ice next, right?
That is correct.
All right.
And we're going to head back to the Big Apple, but this time I have to fade the Rangers. They're at home, but they're playing the second game of a back-to-back. Like we said, they beat Chicago 6-2 on the road last night, but now they have to come home. Again, they still won't have Igor Shesterkin in net. They're going to have to go to Alexander Georgiev, and he's not used to playing in back-to-back games, much less back-to-back games on back-to-back days. Colorado, they're an offensive machine. You look at the guys they roll out there. You've got Nathan McKinnon. You've got Gabriel Landeskog. You've got Nazem Kadri, who, when he played in Toronto, all he was good for was getting suspended for beating people up or, taking cheap shots at him. But all of a sudden he decided that, you can actually do something with the puck. I didn't realize that you were actually supposed to, try to light the lamp. They lead the league in goals per game, 4.14 a night. They've scored 25 goals in their last 5 games. Granted, they've given up a ton of goals. They gave up 5 to the Flyers the other night in a 7-5 win. They gave up 6 to Ottawa. They gave up 8 to Toronto last week in an 8-3 loss at Scotiabank Arena. But still, they're rested. They were in Philadelphia Monday. They were off Tuesday. They play. Now they'll go take the short trip to Madison Square Garden for this one. If you get right down to it, the Avalanche 44-15 in their last 59 as a favorite. They're 11-2 in their last 13 after scoring at least 5 goals in their last game. The Rangers 13-28 in their last 41 as an underdog, and they're 3-7 in their last 10 as a home underdog. I love that the Rangers are 8-1-1 at home, but I don't love that they have to fly back from the Windy City to face a team like Colorado that can just roll out offense after offense after offense. And I don't think that the Rangers can keep up with that.
John was giving you some props here. He said Chris Strong's bet was Nova, and it hit. Called exactly how it turned out.
Well, John, you can feel free to send me a belt. You can find me on Twitter and tell me, how you want to send it, and that'd be great. I'll put it up on the wall.
There you go. All right.
Hopefully it's one of the spinny ones. Those were great.
Yeah. All right. So we continue to stay in the NHL. This time we're moving.
We're going to go to Vancouver. Good old BC there. Bruce Boudreau had a nice debut game as they beat the Kings 4-0 on Monday. So they're 1-0. Bruce Boudreau should quit now.
Right.
They'll have the best winning percentage in Vancouver history. With that said, even with that win, Vancouver's just 4-7-1 at home this season, which is not a pretty stat to look at. The Bruins, they get Brad Marchand back. Remember, he was suspended 3 games after slew-footing Oliver Ekman-Larsson in the previous matchup between these teams just last week. The Bruins are due for some positive regression offensively. They're 21st in the league in goals per game at 2.86, but they're second in the league in shots at 36.7. You're not going to have that carry over for an entire season. Obviously, if you're firing that much rubber on the net, unless you're facing, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in goal, they're not going to block you out that often. Boston's 5-0 in their last 5 as a road favorite. They're 4-0 in their last 4 on the road. They're 6-1 in their last 7 after scoring 2 goals or less. If you look at those numbers, Vancouver, and I know that I say it a lot, but I love using Lou Brown from Major League when you talk about, we won yesterday. If we win today, that's 2 in a row. That's called a winning streak. Well, Vancouver's 3-13 after their last 16 victories. What does that tell you? It tells me that they don't know what a winning streak is. On top of that, you factor in that, the Canucks are just 1-8 in their last 9 as an underdog, 1-6 in their last 7 on Wednesday, 0-4 in their last 4 against teams with a winning record. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Bruce Boudreau as the hire. He's a lot better than Travis Green. He's had success everywhere he's been. It's going to take some time for him to get this team back to relevance after such a pathetic start to the season. The Bruins already beat Vancouver this season. They get Marchand back. That's a big boost for them offensively because he can go back on that line with David Pastrnak and Patrice Bergeron. Look for the Bruins to win it for Cena and drop Boudreau to 1-1 and make him wonder, should I have quit when I was ahead, when I was 1-0?
It's funny with Bruce. Most of his teams hit their stride starting from January through February as you move toward, that stretch run. He has had, no matter where he has, whether, it's been successful in Washington or Anaheim or wherever, Bruce has always had that little dip in the early part of the season, especially, in the November, December times. And it almost got him fired a couple of times because he had such poor starts. But usually he figures out a way to fix it and gets the team on track. And like you say, it's only his second game. I wouldn't exactly, bet the farm, no pun intended, on, on that happening again tonight.
Yeah, Vancouver's got some good young guys, but the fact is they don't have a ton of veteran leadership, and they don't have quality goaltending. Thatcher Demko, he might get better as the year goes on. Yaroslav Halak has done absolutely nothing for the Canucks, and you have to wonder, did Boston make a smart move letting him go in free agency during the offseason and going out and get Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman as their 1-2 instead of Halak and Rask?
It's funny, too, because Halak used to be one of those guys that you absolutely, couldn't score against. And now, for some reason, it's just totally gone away from him.
And I'll tell you what, B7ING2, since you talked about, you want to see us talk about our top pick for the night, we'll take that into consideration, and I'll see if we can work that into the show for you. John, as far as my favorite sport to bet where the analytics are dead on, it's usually hockey because – you can pull a lot of flukes out in basketball if you have a hot night from 3-point range. You can have same thing in college hoops. And hockey, you're not going to – it's a lot harder to fluke things out. There's so much more physicality involved. And if a team is good, yeah, sure, you're going to get those teams like the Coyotes where they win games 1-0 once in a while. But more often than not, when you look at the numbers, like we've talked about, we faded Arizona the other night against Dallas. They lost 4-1. I faded them Friday night against Vegas. They lost 7-1. That's usually the safer way to go. The analytics seem to be more accurate with hockey than anything else just because of that. The good teams are really good. The bad teams are really bad. Never shall the two meet. That's just the way it works out.
As the saying goes, you are who you are.
Exactly. And as Dennis Green would tell you, the Coyotes are who we thought they were.
Right.
And we let them off the hook.
And don't talk, if you're a Coyotes fan, don't talk playoffs because they ain't going to happen.
And if you want to crown them, then crown their asses.
Right. Okay. Quick announcement, folks. Please, if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, please hit the like button and the subscribe button, okay? It's greatly appreciated. Doesn't take anything, doesn't cost you anything. Just takes moving the mouse over and smacking that button. So please do that for us. We greatly appreciate it. And without any further ado, back to the ice we go.
And we're going to go to the Garden State. It's a Metropolitan Division battle, and we just talked about how the good teams are good and the bad teams are bad. Well, guess what, folks? Philadelphia right now is bad. They fired their coach. Alain Vigneault is gone. Michel Therrien is gone. Mikey Yao is currently running the show. I've gotten unsubstantiated rumors that Gritty might, be the next coach for all we know. It could be the ghost of Fred Shiro. They could get Bernie Parent. They could get anybody, but it doesn't matter. The Flyers 0-7-2 in their last 9. They haven't won since mid-November. They lost 5-2 to the Devils just a couple weeks ago. In their last 5 games, the Flyers have given up 29 goals. If you're scoring at home, that's 5.8 goals per game that they've given up. Each of those games they've lost by at least 2. The Devils 6-4-3 on home ice. The Flyers 4-5-2 on the road. I have absolutely no faith in whoever the Flyers put in net. It could be Carter Hart. It could be Martin Jones. It could be Ron Hextall. They could exhume Pelle Lindbergh. They could go and get Parent again. Maybe Jerry Desjardins can come out of retirement. It doesn't matter. The Flyers can't stop a beach ball right now. They're 0-8 in their last 8 as an underdog. They're 0-8 in their last 8 against Eastern Conference teams. They've lost their last 5 on the road. The home teams won 5 of the last 6 in this series, and the Devils have won 4 of the last 5, including that 5-2 win that I mentioned at home on November 28th. I know that this burned me yesterday when I talked about teams on a skid with the Islanders, but guess what? The Flyers are not the Islanders. They're worse. Take the Devils at home. Look for them to prevail in this one and extend Philadelphia's misery. Hopefully nobody brought in batteries to chuck at people like they used to do at Veterans Stadium.
Right.
Or fortunately it's an indoor building, so they can't peg snowballs at Santa Claus.
The only stadium in NFL history to have a jail. So there you go. They're not the Broad Street, not the Broad Street Bullies anymore. Anyway, finally.
Yeah, we've got
Dallas and the
game
Kings
in Vegas.
Yeah.
The surging Dallas Stars, who have won 7 straight games and have won 9 of their last 10 on the road to face Vegas. I look for this one to stay under the total. Now, I know people are thinking, hey, Vegas scores a lot of goals and they give up a fair amount of goals. But look at that second stat. In that 7-game win streak, Dallas has given up a total of 9 goals. Now, going back to Philadelphia for a second, we just saw them give up 7 goals in back-to-back games.
Mm-hmm.
9 goals in 7 games. They haven't given up more than 2 goals in any of those contests. Vegas comes in off a 3-2 win over Calgary. Dallas has seen the under go of 7-0, and they've gone under in each of the 7 games in that win streak. The under 6-0 in their last 6 after allowing 2 goals or less. 6-0 in their last 6 after a win. The under is 5-0 in their last 5 against Western Conference teams. 5-0 against teams with a winning record. Even Vegas has gotten into the under thing. It's they've gone 8-3-1 in their last 12 against Central Division teams. And when these teams meet, you don't see a ton of offense. The under's gone 5-0-1 in the last 6. It's 4-1-2 in the last 7 meetings in Vegas. We're probably looking at another 3-2 type of game here, and that puts you under the mark.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm glad for Vegas that they're getting healthy. They've got Max Pacioretty back. They got Mark Stone back. Jack Eichel had that revolutionary neck surgery. They hope he'll be back around the All-Star break. That could only boost things offensively for them. But you're facing a really hot defensive team that makes life miserable when it comes to trying to get good shots on net. And I look for this one to be, like I said, probably it's going to be 2-1, 3-2, something like that. And it's going to stay under the mark.
The other thing, too, with regard to Dallas is they are a very streaky team. So
that's true.
If they're on a roll, you gotta be careful because they definitely they can reel off 14, 15 in a row and then lose 3 in a row. So,
yeah, and we saw that last season because they started off so hot and then they had like 7 or 8 games in a row that were decided in overtime or a shootout that they ended up losing a whole bunch out of, and that ended up knocking them down the standings and then pushed them out of the playoff picture.
Yeah, they can have a bad 2 weeks and be go from.
And they could be like the Islanders.
Yeah, nobody wants that. All right. Speaking of the hardwood, we're now in the NBA, and we are in the association with the Bulls and the Cavaliers in Cleveland.
Yeah, and it's a Central Division battle here. Both teams have played pretty well of late. I mean, Cleveland had a 4-game win streak before dropping 2 straight to Utah and then falling again on Monday to Milwaukee. Chicago's won 4 straight and 5 of 6. Cleveland's playing their 3rd game in 4 nights, and they don't necessarily know what it's like to be a favorite. This is only the 3rd time this season that the Cavaliers have been favored. Now, I know both teams are missing pieces. DeMar DeRozan is in the health and safety protocols. Alex Caruso is dealing with a hamstring issue. Kobe White's in the health and safety protocols for the Bulls. Patrick Williams had wrist surgery, so he'll miss most of the season. Cavaliers don't have Colin Sexton. We've talked about that before. He's done for the year after a knee injury. But the Bulls 4-0 in their last 4 when their opponent scores at least 100 points. They're 4-0 in their last 4 on one-day rest. Cleveland doesn't do well as a favorite. Those numbers there pointed out. Cleveland 22, 47, and 1 in their last 70 as a favorite at home. They're 3-8-1 in their last 12 at home against teams with a winning road record. And the Bulls have taken 20 of the last 26 meetings between these teams. And let's face it, we're not talking about the Bulls they haven't been world beaters in the last few years. So for them to have that much success against a Cleveland team gives you an idea of how bad Cleveland's been. And on top of that, Chicago, Billy Donovan, he's got a lot of depth there. He's getting production. Who would have thought Lonzo Ball could be a prolific offensive player after watching him play in New Orleans? Then you've got Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic. That's a very nice trio to have, even if you don't have DeRozan in the mix.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how they're an underdog even on the road. I get you're missing DeRozan and his 25, 28 points or 27 points a game. But it's Cleveland, and they've just lost 2 straight, and they're tired.
Yeah, there's that. And, it's good to see the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls are coming together with a group of people that not a lot of people had any expectations for. Meanwhile, there's a lot of expectations with the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, and before I talk about the under here, why I'm going that way, I want to get to Matt's question. Well, how won't the Nuggets cover 2.5 against the Pelicans? Well, the short answer is they should cover the line. They still have Nikola Jokic, even though they're minus seemingly half their rotation. The Pelicans don't have, obviously, Zion Williamson yet. They don't have a go-to guy that they can really rely on offensively outside of Brandon Ingram. And you have to think that Denver can win this game, even though they've lost 8 out of their last 10. They won't have Bones Highland. They won't have P.J. Dozier, who had reconstructive knee surgery this week. Michael Porter Jr. out with a after back surgery. Jamal Murray still out. Austin Rivers and Bol. Whether he lives up to Minute's lofty status remains to be seen. But both these teams struggle when it comes to scoring. Denver 26th in scoring offense. New Orleans is 27th. Neither team really pushes the pace. Denver's 28th in tempo. New Orleans 21st. The Nuggets, despite their offensive issues, they're 3rd in the league in scoring defense. So they can make life tough even for good teams. And New Orleans is not a good offensive unit. The under 7-0 in the Nuggets' last 7 when it comes to playing teams with a losing record. They're 7-1. The under in their last 8 on Wednesday. In their last 11 as a road favorite, Denver's seen the under go 9-2. It's gone 8-2 in the Nuggets' last 10 as a favorite outright. New Orleans has seen the under go 7-1 in their last 8 at home against teams with a losing road record, and 5-1 in their last 6 on 2 days of rest. And like Matt said, Josh Hart also questionable. Could make another blow to a New Orleans team that has really struggled to score with any kind of regularity this season.
Wonder if they'll be throwing beads out there.
They need to throw something out there.
Right, throw something. Speaking of good teams, and we hadn't for a while, let's go see our buddies, the Warriors, who just can't seem to lose.
Yeah, Golden State's on a roll, and they face a Portland team at home. By at home, I mean Golden State's at home, where they're 13-2 this season. Meanwhile, look at that first stat: Portland 1-10 on the road this season. They've lost 3 in a row, and 6 of their last 7. If you look at those numbers, they've lost by 12 at home to the Clippers. They've lost by 28 to Boston in a game where they gave up 145 points. They lost by 31 at home to the Spurs. They lost by 22 to Utah on the road in a game where they gave up 129. And they lost 118-103 to Golden State November 26th here in the Chase Center. Now, in that game, you notice they had their starting backcourt as Lillard and McCollum were both playing. Lillard now out with an abdominal injury. McCollum was diagnosed with a collapsed lung. You won't see either one of them on the floor today. You probably also won't see Anthony Simons. And what I understand is that Portland tried to get Terry Porter out of retirement and Clyde Drexler, but they didn't return their calls. When you get right down to it, Portland 0-9 in their last 9 as an underdog. They're 0-8 as a road underdog. They're 0-8 in their last 8 on the road against teams with a winning home record. Golden State 5-1 in their last 6 on Wednesday. 5-1-1 in their last 7 at home against teams with a road winning percentage under 400. And Golden State 23-6-1 against the spread in their last 30 overall. I know that number is big. I know it's ugly. It's 14 points. But considering Portland has lost by 28 and 31 at home in 2 of their last 3 home games, and facing especially that galling 31-point loss to San Antonio when I said, hey, yeah, Portland's at home. They're great. They should have no problem beating San Antonio. And then they rolled over and died and scored 83 points. You can't have any faith in them here on the road against a Golden State team that is atop the Western Conference standings and battling up there with the Suns in the Pacific Division.
No, they could. Looks like the Golden State could play horse and beat them tonight.
Golden State could, stand around and do nothing and probably watch Portland miss enough shots that they lose. Matt McCollum is definitely out. He was diagnosed with a collapsed lung. They're saying it could be a couple weeks before he's due back in the mix.
Wow. All right. Well, we've gotten through most of the NBA.
Nope, that was it.
And it's time to go for 2 for the money. So,
yep.
Where are we going tonight? Last night, 2 for the money was big in the Big Apple. Let's see where it is tonight.
Well, like we just said, I like the Bulls +3 over the Cavs. I have no faith in Cleveland right now, especially without Colin Sexton. I know the Bulls are banged up, but I don't have a ton of faith in Cleveland's depth, and they're unfamiliar with what it's like to be a favorite. So look for them to struggle here. And the Avalanche or the Rangers, like I said, the Rangers have been hot, and I won't take that away from them. But playing the second game of a back-to-back after having to fly back from Chicago, they're going to be a little weary in the third period, and that's when a team like Colorado can bury you in a hurry. Like I said, they lead the league in goals per game. So there's potential for some big numbers there. And the other one, I like the Wizards, -5 on the road in the Motor City. The Pistons have lost 9 straight. They just lost to Oklahoma City, which is bad enough in itself. But they lost to Oklahoma City at home by double figures, which is even more galling. The Wizards have struggled lately, but I expect them to cover the Pistons at home or on the road. And the Bucks, -6 over the Heat. Miami without Bam Adebayo, as you know, he had thumb surgery.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be out until mid-January. Jimmy Butler re-aggravated his tailbone injury after he fell against Memphis. He is out tonight as well, as is Morris. Granted, Eric Spoelstra gets the most he can out of his team, but we just watched this team. They beat Indiana Friday, then they got schmaltzed by Milwaukee on Saturday. They had their issues with Memphis on Monday. Without Butler and Adebayo, you're taking away 2 of their biggest offensive weapons. The Bucks are getting healthier now. Antetokounmpo's back in the mix. You got to like the Bucks, even going on the road and playing in South Beach.
Absolutely. All right. We've got 2. We've got 4. And now it's time for the whole enchilada, but I'll
No,
let
it's time for the 4, Jim.
the 4.
You're skipping ahead. We just did the 2s.
I'm looking down here. My
I'll start.
bad. Ready?
Jim
Yeah,
Williams.
rewind. Here we go again. 2 for the money and
5 yards.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
The Mountaineers.
Yeah, we're going to go with West Virginia minus 2.5 over UConn. Like I said, I can't trust the Huskies. I get that they've had a good start to the season. How do they react without Sanogo and Tyrese Martin, and where they get their points from is going to be a big factor for them for the next few weeks. You have to feel bad for Dan Hurley. They've played so well in the first part of the season, but now it comes down to a battle of attrition. How can they make up for that? The Devils over the Flyers. Like I said, Philadelphia's given up 29 goals in their last 5 games. They're coming off back-to-back games where they allowed 7. They're 0-7-2 in their last 9. They're on the road here against a New Jersey team that beat them already. You can't have any faith in the Flyers. I'm sorry for any of you that still like the Flyers. You know, sure, they were great when the Broad Street Bullies were around, when Bobby Clark had no teeth and was beating people up. Unfortunately, that's not the way this team plays. Golden State, like I said, minus 14 over Portland. Portland has no starting backcourt. Without Lillard and McCollum, they were lost without just Lillard. Now without him and McCollum, it's an uphill climb for sure. And like I said, you're looking at 2 bottom-tier offenses here with the Nuggets and the Pelicans, especially with Denver dealing with so many injuries. I look for that one to stay under 213.5.
You know, I love Jones' response, and that is you got to ride with Golden State till the wheels fall off. And I'm with you, Joan. Keep riding. And Joan,
with women's basketball, I'm guessing you're talking about college. I did cover the WNBA during the season for Winners and Whiners, and when that starts back up, in the summertime, we'll definitely get to that as well. We can always throw in a couple women's college games if you guys are interested enough. I can look into it because I have no problem with that at all.
Absolutely. All right. Time to go crazy. And I'll let you give the disclaimer on this massive amount of possibilities.
Right. These are a whole bunch of other games that I've looked at and that I like to some extent. You can bet on all of them if you want. You can bet on some of them. You can pick 2. You can pick 4. You can pick 8. You can pick 5. You can pick any number between 1 and 10 that works for you. It's like a Chinese menu. I'm not going to put a gun to your head and say, hey, you need to pick all of these right now or else. Because, that doesn't really work over the internet. But these are options that you can look at. You can mix them and match them with some of the other games that we already talked about and create your own 2 or 4 or whatever. But there's some good games out here. Like I said, Philadelphia, I'm going to take them minus 6 over Charlotte. Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball, those guys all in the health and safety protocols. These teams met the other night. Philadelphia won by 3 in overtime. You have to wonder if maybe that'll spur the 76ers because they actually scored 127 points in that game after being stagnant offensively in their previous contests. I like Utah minus 7 over Minnesota. D'Angelo Russell doubtful tonight with a groin injury for the Timberwolves. That's a big blow for them. They will have Karl Anthony Towns back, from what I understand. But Utah is first in the league in offensive rating at 116.2. The Jazz have a great rotation led by Mitchell and Conley and Bogdanovich, and then you've got good role players and scorers in Clarkson, Ingles, Rudy Gay, Hassan Whiteside, and, of course, you've got the Stifle Tower in the low block that can make life miserable on the defensive end for any team. The Nets over the Rockets. Now, the Nets, when I looked at the game yesterday, it was a 4-point game. That line actually went down to 1.5, so if you got into it later on, you would have ended up covering since it was a 3. The Nets won by 3. They came back to beat the Mavs 102-99 with a fourth quarter rally. Houston's won 6 in a row, which is scary because if you look at their win total before that in the first 17 games, well, they had 1. They were 1-16. Now they're 7-16. But the Nets, as long as Durant and Harden are on the floor, it doesn't matter. For Houston, you have to think the Nets will cover there. In college basketball, now, I don't think that Wyoming is going to beat Arizona straight up in Tucson, but that's a pretty big number to give a team coached by Jeff Linder that's 8-0 this season and has beaten Washington on the road, Grand Canyon on the road. And I know those don't sound like big teams, but Grand Canyon's been a tournament team, and Washington's still a Pac-12 team, even though Mike Hopkins has struggled in the last year plus. I also don't understand.
We've been big fans of Wyoming 2 or 3 times during the course of this.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're a good mid-major team, and they can make some noise in the Mountain West. Utah State, they're not the same team now after Nemias Queta left via the draft. I mean, and then Craig Smith also left to take the job elsewhere. So I mean, it's not the same team that you've seen go to the tournament in recent years. So Wyoming, they can make a run up there with San Diego State, who's also a very good mid-major team that everybody overlooks. I don't understand why Virginia Tech is a 17.5 point favorite here. That's why I'm taking Cornell. Cornell, unbeaten on the year. They're second in the nation in scoring at 91.2 points per game. We told you to take them last week, giving 7 against Coppin State. And I know everybody's like, well, here was Coppin State, and Coppin State's 0-11 on the road. Well, I got news for you. We just saw Texas Southern the other day, who was 0-7, go into Gainesville and beat Florida by double digits when they were a 23-point underdog. So don't sleep on teams like that. So take Cornell with the points. I get Virginia Tech has played good defense. Mike Young, I liked him when he was at Wofford. He's still trying to adjust to playing in the ACC. It's a big number, even playing in Blacksburg. Then, like I said earlier, I like Indiana +4 over Wisconsin. I get the Badgers are playing well right now. They won the Maui Invitational in Las Vegas. But you can't sleep on Indiana. Mike Woodson's done a good job with his alma mater there. And Trace Jackson-Davis, a real force in the low block. Wisconsin struggles to shoot the ball. If Indiana plays any kind of defense like they've been playing this season, it could be a long night for the Badgers on the offensive end of the floor. SMU -3.5 over Dayton. I know everybody's going to say, well, come on, Dayton beat Kansas, and they won the ESPN Events Invitational or whatever it was. Yeah, but they're playing on the road here, and SMU is not a slouch either. Tim Jankovic has done a good job with the Mustangs. On the ice, like I said, I like Dallas Vegas to stay under 5.5. It'll be a 3-2 type of game. I like the fact that Boston over Vancouver, and I like the fact that if I had to pick a game outright on that, I like Dallas to actually go on the road and extend their win streak to 8 games.
It's a crazy long group of games there, but I can see 3 or 4 of those wrapping them together and doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some success coming out of this block before. We've had a couple 6s and a couple 8s, and you can mix and match through there and come up with some good stuff.
This might be a good night to take our good friends now at the University of Wyoming.
The Wyoming Cowboys.
That's right, our team.
They should be America's team.
The official team of Just Parlays is the Wyoming Cowboys.
Until Jeff Linder, finds a way to blow that team up, I'm gonna stick with them. I mean, they played good quality basketball.
To coin Jones' phrase, we're going to ride them till the wheels fall off.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, like I said, they've played some good teams, and they've come up with some quality wins. I mean, everybody's gonna be like, they beat Detroit Mercy, so what? But they've also gone on the road. They beat Cal State Fullerton, who's not a great team, but they're not a bad team. They beat Washington in Seattle. They beat Grand Canyon on the road. I mean, you're not talking about a bad team, and they may go into Tucson and they may get stopped, and that might happen. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the Wildcats, but you have to figure that Arizona is also going to be, a little bit shaky. They did beat some quality teams earlier in the year, and they're coming off a win over Oregon State, but Oregon State has been terrible this year, and you have to wonder what's going on there. Because, everybody was all happy about Oregon State last year when they made that deep run in the tournament. But this is a team in Wyoming where, they have no problem making things difficult for opposing teams. They're 5th in effective field goal percentage defense at 40%, and they're 10th in 3-point defense, holding teams at 24.7% from the floor or from beyond the arc. So they're going to make Arizona work on every possession.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen Arizona in the past, and I'm not just saying recently, but it's been their trademark even back in the early years of the Lou Olson era,
right,
where if they get into a game where they're favored big and they get a pushback, they tend to really tighten up and make things difficult for themselves. We saw it in the tournament when Steve Nash was playing at Santa Clara and they upended him. Mm-hmm. We've seen it happen more often than not where Arizona loses to a team that they should have taken care of relatively easily. And that's probably going to be the case here tonight. I like Wyoming with the points because of the fact that they don't beat themselves.
That's the key. That's the key. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we will have our first guest to visit Just Parlays. Pete Medhurst, the voice of Navy football, will join us to talk about the Army-Navy game, and we might be able to get him to talk about a few other things too, because Lord knows there's a lot of things that Pete covers. The Washington football team. He's with Rosecroft Raceway out there. He hosts a show in Washington on ESPN 980. For those of you in the D.C. area, and hear Pete on there, and also with the Washington Nationals. So Pete Medhurst will join us tomorrow. So be here at 1:30 tomorrow to check out Just Parlays with our first guest, Pete Medhurst. So.
And Matt, you're not dumb. There were so many tournaments last week. I know because I wrote about half of them, and some of the games I was writing at 3 and 4 in the morning because I had to wait for the games to end. That by the time I was done looking at the screen, I didn't even know half of what I wrote because of the fact that I couldn't remember if Chaminade was playing in the Maui Invitational, the ESPN Invitational, the Battle for Atlantis, or, insert other tournament name here, the Wooden Legacy.
Right.
I basically wrote, all of them and couldn't remember who was playing where unless I had it in front of me.
So even if you're contractually obligated like Chris is to write that stuff, you don't necessarily be able to see it. Be sure to check out Chris's stuff at winnersandwhiners.com. For my friend Chris King, I'm Jim Williams saying we'll see you tomorrow with our guest, Pete Medhurst. Take care, everybody. We will see you then.